Located halfway between Las Vegas and LA, in the middle of the desert next to the highway, sits an abandoned water park. Lake Dolores has been the home to multiple recreation offerings over the years, from a short-lived modern thrill park that was closed due to an accident, to what could be considered the United States' first water park. A water park that was full of danger, limited rules, and accidents, that some even called the Action Park of the West.
Now, I'm no daredevil, but back at the station they told me this is the kind of story that demands reporter involvement, getting your feet wet, so to speak. So here goes on the water slide, the stand-up style.
John Roberts, known as Bob, and his wife Dolores Byers left their home and paint contracting business in Lakewood, California, and moved to 320 acres of land outside of Barstow in 1953. The family would turn the large section of the desert into a farm that would raise cattle, with the main focus being farming alfalfa. Neither venture produced much profit, the majority of which had to be used to maintain the farm and equipment. The family would have to take second jobs to try and pay their bills on time, with roles ranging from well drillers to hay balers. In 1963, the US government allowed the importing of cheap beef from Argentina and Australia. Cattle prices fell, and so did the farm's already minimal profit. After a decade of barely making ends meet, the couple decided they would use the land to try something else, and hopefully, finally, start earning some money.
By 1956, there were more than 65 million cars on our roads, with 90 million forecast by 1975. Clearly, it was a time for national action.
Shortly after purchasing the property, their land was diminished by around 50 acres, when Interstate 15 would cut across the front of the buyer's land. This new highway offered a major route connecting San Diego, Los Angeles, and Las Vegas. Oh, and also Prim, Nevada. Since we're close to Vegas, Lance has to be here.
I was stupid. I was really stupid.
Located nearly exactly halfway between LA and Vegas, in Newberry Springs, California, the family would look to take a new avenue to take advantage of the large number of people heading right by their doorstep. They would turn the farm into a stopping point for recreation. In 1966, the couple gave up farming after they had read that recreation areas would be in demand in the coming years as city dwellers would be taken to the deserts and mountains. They came up with a plan for a complete recreation facility that they presented to local bankers. The idea was approved, but due to tight budgets, they were unable to obtain the necessary loans to complete the project in one go. They would start the project, and piece by piece, they would continue building until it became that full recreation destination between LA and Vegas. The first stage was to create a lake. Located on a natural spring, it would become a ski lake and named after Bob's wife. Lake Dolores would open to the public in 1967. The skiing wasn't overly popular, and it never really caught on. The first years, it was mainly used by the family. The buyers stated it was harder than they expected to create this first offering, and the large amount of water required was expensive for what they were getting in return. Unfazed, however, the buyers continued with the project, increasing the amount of lakes to 4, one for fishing, one for mini boating, and one for swimming. To create these lakes, water would be pumped from the wells once used to irrigate their alfalfa fields. The water from the bottom would then be pumped into the fish lake and finally into the fingerling lake in a constant circulation. This system created lake water that a county bacteria test proved was pure enough to drink straight from the lake, even though it didn't look like it.
Lake Dolores, the magical water world that features the most exciting high-speed water slides. The family fun place that offers relaxation and incredible thrills just off the I-15 Las Vegas freeway near Barstow. Call now for special rates. Glide down the 200-foot water slides up to 50 miles an hour. Good, clean, safe fun. A thrill a second. Bring the kids. Picnic. Camp overnight. Fly the giant swings at Lake Dolores. The magical water world that guarantees a fun-filled time.
Man-made lakes alone, however, wouldn't be the thing to draw people to the recreation centre. Lake Dolores wouldn't be just another average swimming hole. The buyer's imagination would take this one step further. High above the swimming lake would be two giant slides beckoning visitors driving past. These weren't just average slides either. They would create an 80-foot high sandy hill that was made from dirt excavated to make the lake. There were no stairs here. You would be climbing up in the mud, and at the top were the two unique 220-foot long stand-up water slides, each with a 15-foot drop into the lake at the end. Danger would become known to come hand in hand with Lake Dolores. Rather than sit on a mat or sit on the slide at all, the idea would be to reach the bottom and drop into the lake while trying to remain standing. Try being the key word. Not only could you fall off to the side into the hard sand, but if you were unlucky, you could fall and hit your head directly onto the hard steel slide, especially towards the bottom of the drop.
Well, they say when the horse throws you the first time, you got to get right back on him. So let's take it again, Tom. Close, but still no cigar. Sure wish there was a lift to the top.
In the early years, the park knew it was dangerous, and risk was involved in attractions.
Now for the main attractions, but first a warning. You proceed at your own risk.
We don't make any beans about the fact that there is some risk here. There's risk in anything you do. Even when you drive down the freeway, you have a risk involved. So anything that you do nowadays, when you go snow skiing, water skiing, and you come here, any place where there's some fun, there is some element of risk.
Had any serious accidents or problems for you?
No, nothing real serious, no.
Other early attractions included a swinging trapeze located in the middle of a 15-foot deep lake. There was fishing and a picnic area. For the first years, the attraction only had portable toilets until permanent fixtures were constructed in the early 70s. They only did this to accompany the next major addition, a campground. This large project began construction in 1972, and you could pitch your tent directly at the lake's edge, if you got there early enough to get the spot.
Just got to make sure everybody gets out of the way, so when they come down these stand-up slides that another guy doesn't land on somebody else. You just keep control, that's the main thing. We have people on top that, control them from coming down. Some of them take off too quick, and so we, keep everybody out of the way.
The park became well known for teenage parties, drinking, hookups, and offering exciting but unsafe fun. The water park would be a huge daily undertaking and managed by various family members, with Dolores watching the front gate along with daughter Kim.
Dennis Bender is Byers' son-in-law, a history and government teacher at Apple Valley High. That's his son Donnie turning 360s on the stand-up slide. And daughter Debbie riding the laydown.
Families would come from all over to visit Lake Dolores. It was unique. They would spot the signs at the turn of the freeway and would see the slides in the distance at the odd oasis in the middle of nowhere. By 1971, 30,000 visitors were visiting in a year, with 94% of the lake's attendance coming from LA. Originally, they would pay 50 cents for adults. This increased to $1.50 quite quickly due to the demand and the need for higher returns. It was instantly more successful than the buyer's farming business and offered much better profit than they could have ever hoped for from farming. They would continue to try and push the lake attendance by spending nearly $20,000 a month on advertising. The original plans for the recreation centre changed over the years, and more was added to the attraction. With the addition of more activities, it morphed into Lake Dolores Water Park, which some consider to be the first real water park in the United States. Known as the fun spot of the desert, more additions came with a zip line taking riders on a high-speed trip into the lake, hanging from a handheld device. If you couldn't hold on for the 200-foot drop, you promptly fell onto the hard sand below. And if you could, you would eventually fall 20 feet into the lake at the bottom.
Now, I'm sure that the third time would have been the charm, but I've only got a few trips up this hill left in me. So I think I'm going to try the tram. All right.
Get out for the tire. 3.
If I'd really known what kind of timing was involved, I wouldn't have been so eager to try my luck. And lucky is what I was.
There were also 8 180-foot-long laydown slides on mats that would reach speeds of 40 miles per hour on the 60-degree angle steel drop.
On to the beginner slope, which I obviously should have tried first. They say there's no way to mess up on this one as long as you go lying down. Otherwise, it's a little tricky keeping your seat. It doesn't take long to get the hang of it, and those who have hang together.
If you were good, you could skim across the lake at the bottom. If you were really good, you could land in the dirt on the other side, often crashing into other guests, tents, and cars. Visitors could also find diving boards, bumper boats, and raft rides over the years, along with being a home for multiple sports from the area and boat races. It was a huge teenage hangout, and they came for one thing.
Well, I think just like any high school, you know, there's a great peer image and the social factor, and the girls come here to meet the boys, and the boys come here to meet the girls, and believe me, they meet. And they really do. And this place is a mecca in the middle of the desert for young people, young boys, and young girls to meet.
Yeah, you get tired of the beaches. You want to change every now and then, you know?
So it's worth their drive, what, 150 miles?
Oh yeah.
That's 2 hours and you're here.
Yeah. Nothing's like this around anywhere we live.
The number of lakes at the site increased to 7. Lake Dolores would remain successful throughout the 1970s. Well, if you don't account for the odd drowning, of course. The park certainly didn't count those, and finding a body at the bottom of the lake was not the rare occurrence it should have been. The first time the park had any attendance issues were following the gas crisis in 1979. After a hard hit to attendance, the popular spot quickly bounced back, and attendance was nearly back to the high levels of the earlier years. The early 80s continued to be a success, but they wouldn't reach the peaks of earlier years' attendance. In the fall of 1985, Bob Byers would close the lake. Very little had changed over the last 10 years, and the couple wanted to retire and sell the lake. Concerns were raised about the increasing standards for safety at water parks, and Lake Dolores clearly would not be able to comply for long. Competition was also increasing, with Wet n Wild Vegas open on the Strip. You didn't have to drive into the middle of nowhere to get your water park's fix. It seemed like it would be the perfect time for the buyers to hang up their boots. The 268-acre site will be acquired by Newberry Springs developer A.J. Gus Ragosa. On the lake will be a proposed 2,000-space RV resort called Waterworld, a place that would be planned as one of the US's largest privately operated RV resorts. This new destination would add Wild West, Polynesian and Asian themed villages, along with a golf course between the now multiple existing lakes of Lake Dolores. The new project was planned to cost $20 million and take 5 to 10 years to complete. Investors for the project never materialized, and nothing came from it. The planned project fell through, and Bob Byers cancelled the deal when they didn't come up with a $250,000 down payment for the site. He even lowered the down payment to $175,000. They still didn't comply. When asked about the project, Gus said that they had been working hard on Waterworld for nearly 2 years, and they had spent a lot of money but couldn't come up with investors with ready cash. The total sale of Lake Dolores was expected to have been $1.5 million. The water park reopened, as it originally was, continuing to be managed for the buyer family. However, Bob stated it was still up for sale. He wanted to retire. Gus Ragosa said he wasn't giving up, and it was just a misunderstanding. He had just been trying to find the cash to get the project rolling. Still. In 1989, Gus again announced he would be buying the lake and would create Waterworld. This time as before, but now with an added jungle boat ride. The buyers closed Lake Dolores Recreation Center in 1989 and would sell the lake in August 1990 to be able to finally retire. Lake Dolores' story does not end here though. It was all about to go downhill. Gus never did get the funds to create Waterworld. For nearly a decade the resort sat there, and a long way from the recreation water capital of the desert it had been. In 1996 the lake was sold again to an investment group led by Californian businessman Terry Christensen. He was a general contractor who had already built 4 water parks for other people. He wanted to build one for himself, and he formed the Lake Dolores group. Instead of reopening and upgrading what had been there before, he would create something brand new. Something that was a little less dangerous. The complete opposite of what had stood before. A brand new, shiny and crystal clear chlorine-watered attraction. The dangerous Lake Dolores water park of old would be no more. It would now be called the Rock-A-Hoola water park. Located on the former lakes, the majority of which were removed, the brand new 270-acre water park would feature a 1950s and 1960s rock and roll theme, along with a brand new larger lake. All new slides were brought in and the area redeveloped completely. Opening on July 4th, 1998, Rock-A-Hoola featured 18 water slides with names such as Grease Lightning, the Triple Twist and Shout, the Doo-Wop Super Drop, and the Big Bopper, which the park advertised as the world's largest family raft ride. These new fiberglass slides that replaced the still versions were painted red, white and blue in reference to the flag. Throughout the park, rock music from the theme era was played and theming was scattered throughout to set the tone. After the park opened, an RV park and campground were also planned. The park's vice president of marketing, Rick Miller, when asked about the new park, said that the place began as a roadside attraction, but now it was going to become a destination in its own right. They had old gas stations, Route 66 decor, and on an average day, over 1,000 people were visiting the brand new water park. They had big plans for the future.
Future plans for the resort include a hotel, a 36-hole golf course, an amphitheater, an eclectic food court, a wave pool, and development of Fun Island, complete with miniature golf, go-karts, and a concert stage.
Yep, none of this would ever happen. Issues began right away after opening. One of the investors was acting up, and is said to have walked away from the deal with millions of dollars. Directly after, Lake Dolores LLC had to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy within its first year of opening. They would close just 3 years later. The park's investors had spent so much money creating a brand new resort that it would never get anywhere close to making a profit, or have the time to do so. While a much safer park than what existed before, ironically, an accident would also play a large part in Rock-A-Hoola's history. On May 29, 1999, the park closed for the day after a jet ski competition. A 23-year-old pool tech was about to start his shift, and 15 minutes before he clocked in for the evening, he instructed another employee to turn on the slide Doo-Wop Super Drop, as it had been turned off 60 minutes earlier when the park closed. He had decided he wanted to ride the slide and climb the stairs to the top. After believing it had had enough time to fill the run-out lane at the bottom, he went down the slide. The run-out lane hadn't filled enough, and he did not slow down, hitting the concrete dam at the end of the runoff, leaving him paralyzed. The park's general manager saw the employee laying on the floor at the bottom of the slide, but thought it was a joke, as employees were not allowed to ride slides after hours, and he did not have permission to do so. The pool tech applied for workers' compensation benefits due to the incident, and signed that the injuries occurred while testing the water slide. The park managers, including Terry Christensen, disputed the claim, and the application was denied. A huge court case began on whether the injury occurred during the course and scope of employment, with him not yet being clocked in. The park policy was not clear. Rock-A-Hoola would be sued, and a jury in the court eventually awarded the employee $4.4 million in 2004. The original claim that he was not acting within the scope of employment was overturned. While many blame this lawsuit for the park's short demise, the park was already in a difficult position before this even happened. Rock-A-Hula's fate had been sealed directly after opening. They were in $3 million of debt before this incident even occurred. After the large expense of the construction and marketing of the park, the partner issues, and the difficult financial situation, the legal battle would be the final nail in the park's coffin. The water park's owners went into bankruptcy again, and after just 3 seasons, the brand new water park would be completely abandoned. Terry Christensen had tried to turn the destination into a resort worth visiting, creating something brand new, exciting, and unique. But sadly, through no fault of his own, Rock-A-Hoola would cease to be.
Refreshing oasis that is the all-new Lake Dolores Resort and Rock-A-Hula Water Park. Visitors are treated to an atmosphere filled with classic Americana and family fun. Boasting 18 brand new aqua attractions, including the Big Bopper, the world's largest family raft ride, the all-new Rock-A-Hula Water Park offers something for everyone. Young and old alike can bask in the sun, get their kicks on one of the many exciting water slides, relax in the cool flow of the Blue Bayou River, or take time to enjoy one of the many shaded areas in the park. When it's time to eat, the park offers the Lazy River Cafe, or a lush family picnic area.
The majority of the park's assets were liquidated, and in 2001, the land reverted back to Dolores buyers when a buyer couldn't be found. A year later, she would find a buyer for the park. Dolores would pass away shortly after. With a new group of investors buying the lake, just like it had done before, the water park would come back to life. After a $400,000 renovation, the water park reopened in May 2002 on weekends only, under the unofficial name Discovery Water Park. Terry Christensen was still on board as a consultant. It would open intermittently until the summer of 2004, when it would once again be closed. This time, it would never come back from the dead. Sitting abandoned next to the highway, the water park became a place of myth and mystery. From 2008, the park and land passed through multiple owners, with many attempts to reopen it. Some trying to turn it into housing, or even a new RV park. The site was also used in multiple TV shows and productions since its closing. The slides were eventually sold and shipped to Canada's Cultus Lake in British Columbia. The Big Bopper was renamed to Colossal Canyon. Much of what else remained was sold off, bit by bit, over the years. Anything left was stolen. Today, all of the slides and attractions are gone. Some of the buildings still stand, and what is left sits abandoned in ruin and covered in graffiti. Little remains of Rock-A-Hoola, and even less of the original recreation centre. Over the years, the majority of it has been destroyed or set on fire by those visiting, and it now just sits in the middle of nowhere as a remnant of the past. In the 1960s and 70s, very little existed offering that water park experience. Most people know River Country, that opened in 1976, or Wet n Wild Orlando, that opened in 1977, and consider them to be the first official water park in the United States. But by then, Lake Dolores had been offering water park fun for over a decade. What Lake Dolores offered was rarely found elsewhere, and would be worth going out of the way for. That was until water parks eventually became much more prominent around the country. So far, the story of this now legendary place is one of 3 parts. An abandoned rotting place next to a highway in the middle of the desert, a shiny new themed water park destination, and perhaps the most special, a family-ran, dangerous water place that many enjoyed but would never exist still today. This is a story, however, that never seems to truly end. In 2020, the San Bernardino County Board of Supervisors approved a plan that would allow the redevelopment of the long-abandoned park. Now owned by G&GF Enterprises since 2013, it is believed that this could once again be known as an oasis in the desert. This new plan includes refreshing the 41-acre former water park, restoring the 22-acre lake, and finally adding hotels and restaurants that were once planned many years ago. The project was due to begin construction in 2020 and open the first phase in 2021. As of 2021, no work has started, and the new owner states this is down to the global pandemic. Construction on the water park, however, is stated to begin in 2022, ready for a summer 2023 opening. When asked, owner Omgar said around 90% of the old infrastructure is salvageable. By 2025, he hoped Lake Dolores would once again become a resort destination. Will this park rise from the dead one more time? Only time will tell, but it seems the story of Lake Dolores has a chance to continue. A story that has been the home of a water park in some form for over 55 years. A story that started with one family.
I have people that come all the way from Frisco down here. And they come from San Diego, down the Imperial Valley, the mountains, every place. And it's not just a drop-in thing. People, when they come to Lake Dolores, it's destination Lake Dolores when they come here.
Byers runs his 300-acre spread along with 19 members of his family. Now 62, he started building the lakes and slides in 1967 after going under as an alfalfa and cattle rancher.
In the original park, everything was built by hand by the Byers. It was a mud hole that barely had any rules in the middle of the desert. A place of good times and dangerous fun, reportedly with at least one major accident a day. It was a place full of murky lakes, bruising water slides, and a view of the desert in every direction. Bob Byers passed away in 1996. He left a legacy of creating not only a place thousands made amazing memories at, but what could be considered America's first water park.
It's out in the middle of nowhere, and like an oasis in the Sahara, Lake Dolores draws parched travelers from miles around.
Lake Dolores in its original form was the definition of a family-run place that people loved. From the Byers' children, cousins, and grandchildren, nearly all of them worked at the park at one point. Many stories talk about how friendly and welcoming they were to those visiting their lakes. One former visitor called the place a death trap, but man, it was a blast. If you didn't go home with a bruise or a cut from your day at Lake Dolores, you didn't have any fun. It was a place that the beer flowed, and accidents were just a regular thing that can never exist still today. A place of its time, one that eventually was abandoned not once, not twice, but 3 times. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Expedition Extinct. If you enjoyed it, make sure you subscribe to join the expedition. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram for updates on upcoming episodes, and a special thank you to our Patreons for supporting the channel. We will see you next time.